I promise you.
He's actually not.
I promise you.
I know you paid it, I'm telling you, based on my information off the internet,
Oh, well, that internet.
on the various sources,
Yeah.
was you're 78% subsidized of your premium. If I'm wrong, I will write a written
No,
apology.
my staff will call you up and, and I know I'm on Obamacare, Affordable Care Act. I will call you and tell you what that all is. Because I don't even know, it just comes out of my paycheck.
Just so that everybody knows, since 2014, all of Congress and staff has been on Obamacare. We all pay into our premiums. For a family like mine of 4, my premium is $700. We are exempt. We are not allowed to have platinum plans. They can only be silver or gold. And so we all pay into the same system that you are on. Sorry. Thank you.
I appreciate that.
Officials have a different.
And I sleep on a mattress on my floor when I'm in Washington DC, if I don't drive home. True story, and it's not comfortable. All right, go ahead, sir. Go ahead, man, let it go.
Go ahead.
All right, let it rip.
Yeah, I will acknowledge that the internet does have some misleading information on it, but I'm a librarian in the city of Reading, and
We gotta get back to the card catalogs that I grew up with. All that time I spent in card catalogs.
disagree. Anyway, President Trump has indicated that you would like to cut funding to the Institute of Museum Library Sciences Studies. Do you support funding libraries? Do you support keeping what little federal funding there is for libraries?
I think from, broadly speaking, the great equalizer in our country from an educational opportunity perspective is our library system. It's probably a little less today than it was 20 years ago because we have the internet. But I also think that when you go to a library, the ability of a librarian to direct you in the right direction. The other thing, and this is not so much federal, there's a little bit of federal, but I think it's much more state and even county and school district driven. You see, particularly in inner cities, but even here in Berks County, because I visited a fair number of libraries when I was county commissioner, we had a federated library system where you could book share around the entire county. Your low-income kids, if you're not providing some opportunities in the summer at libraries, there are no opportunities to be had. So from an equalizer perspective, from an opportunity perspective, I think that you need, to me that's the educational infrastructure. It's no different than our school system. I would, the Trump, let's just talk about the Trump budget for a second, right? Budgeting in Washington DC doesn't make sense because they just either print more money or they pretend that it'll balance in years 9 and 10, so they put off all the cuts till 9 and 10. And then it goes to Congress and Congress just ignores it. When President Obama was in office, I don't even think that there was a Democratic House member that was willing to introduce the budget in one of his last years, and his budgets, I don't even think they ever passed. So let's shift to the new president. Congress isn't going to take up the Trump budget, let alone pass it. They just are constitutionally required to offer up a budget. What's going to happen is we're going to get close to September 30th, and whatever the spend number was last year is probably going to be the spend number this year. There's probably going to be increased military spending because of what's going on in North Korea and Russia and Syria. And you're probably going to see an increase in some discretionary spending, but that remains to be seen. But I would, if you want to sit down and talk about that direct spend item, because what I've done a lot this summer is a lot of different people come in and they have a particular program that helps them and they explain why it helps people in the community. That's always helpful to me so that the next time I'm asked that, if I'm ever asked that specific question, I can say I sat down, I met with you, here's how many people it helps, here's why it's good for our local community, et cetera, et cetera.
And I do get that the president is either posturing or offering a pie-in-the-sky budget, and that's not really what's going to necessarily go to the floor, but I'm glad to hear that you do support that facet or don't support that facet of his budget. And just your point about who's using the library, the Reading Eagle ran a paper, was on the front page, I think it was I forget the day last week, about millennials using the library, people my age.
Also, senior citizens.
Yeah. So it's not even just low-income kids who do benefit greatly.
I agree with you.
But yeah, there's a lot of people using internet there at the library.
You're totally
Wi-Fi
right.
access, so.
Point well taken. I was trying to cite but one example, but you're correct.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, so now we're going to get to some problems.
We have a couple categories here. We have Trump, taxes.
A lot of those.
Yes. Healthcare, budget.
All right, we're not doing healthcare. Well, if we do, it's not going to be till later. These are Trump questions.
Trump questions.
Why don't you just read them all, and then I'll offer.
All of them? Are they pretty-
Yeah, and then I'll try and hit on, because there's probably some redundancy in some, but there might be some
This
specificity.
is sort of not a Trump question, but this comes from John Archer. Why missing? Considering the truly beautiful job that Congress has done in coming together.
I feel
on-
there's some facetiousness in it.
I just read them. Has done in coming together on such key issues as healthcare and the Southern Wall. What do you envision this country will look like politically in the next 2, 4, 10 years?
Well, look, I'm going to answer this real quickly, and this is something very serious, because we have some very passionate conservatives. We have some very passionate liberals. I think a lot of people were surprised. A lot of people were surprised that Trump won. There are some people that weren't. They're like, they knew it was coming. Our country is very divided right now, and I feel that there's a lot of anger in our country. And the credibility of the institutions which have enabled this country to endure for as long as it has, I think are uniquely threatened. And there are a lot of reasons for that. And let's leave all of us out of it. I really worry for the 8-year-old and the 12-year-old and the 4-year-old that's going to enter kindergarten, 5-year-old that's going to enter kindergarten. What do they see on cable television? What do they see on social media? Are they going to want to be in politics? Are they going to want to be in public service? What do you think they think of me? No. Or any of us. Because the constant humdrum isn't good. And we have a lot of tough problems in this. We have a lot of vexing challenges, not the least of which is the $20 trillion in debt that we have. That we add another $500 billion every single year to that. And the only way that kind of stuff gets done is if people make tough decisions, they're given the benefit of the doubt, and you have to have Republicans and Democrats, or if there's a third party ever comes along, find some moment in time that says, you know what, this is too serious not to do, and I don't give a hoot if that means I'm not reelected. And if you don't do that stuff, it's going to get worse. Our political culture is going to get worse. Our challenges could very well reach the point where they're not solvable, particularly on the debt. We have tremendous cybersecurity issues as a country. I mean, terrorism and the way that our country is vulnerable are so markedly different than they were even 20 or 30 years ago. I mean, whether it's Russia or North Korea or China or Iran or whomever else, the way to penetrate and disrupt our energy system, our state secrets, you don't need the wealth and the military that we have in order to cause substantial damage to us. We have, and look, you can go right down the line, opioid epidemic, our mental health challenges. There's a whole lot of issues out there. And my point is, to the question, I am most worried about the fact that reflexively, there are some who think if I don't vote, then I must be scared. Somebody did that last week to me, and I was like, I couldn't, otherwise I'd probably be divorced, because my wife automatically think that however I voted, it was because of something bad, contribution, ideology, whatever the case may be. And let's just be honest and fair. There are some that the moment that a Democrat votes a certain way, it must be because they're on the take, or they're bad, or they're evil, whatever. And that's like that's a syndrome of our time. And every single one of us has a little bit of a responsibility on, disagree with me all you want, I mean, that's part of the democratic process. But I just worry that we assign bad motives and think that people are in this for the wrong reasons. And the solution doesn't happen overnight, but relative to the question, that's a big concern. And so where we're going to be in 2 or 4 or 6 years, I hope we're going to be, I hope that the shift back, it gets anchored more towards giving people like me, even if it's not me, the benefit of the doubt, and realizing that we are all in this together. I mean, we can disagree, indivisible, Tea Party, people in the middle. we still gotta find a way to do better than we're doing right now. Because we're not, and I'm not directing this to anybody here, like, we're not doing good as a country right now. We're not doing good as a country. I believe that we're failing our kids with the way our politics is conducted. And the way a lot of stuff happens on social media, I think, is a total failure. Anyway.
This question from Valerie Myers of Fleetwood.
Valerie.
Why did you vote for the minibus bill when it cuts programs, particularly the Department of Energy?
I voted for the minibus bill. This is the one this year. Okay, so the bill gets out of the House. It now has to go to the Senate. I would have to look at what specific cuts we're talking about. If it's the overall number or if there's a particular line item. What's going to happen is that the energy and water bill was wrapped up with military, was wrapped up with veterans, was wrapped up with homeland security. Oftentimes, when you get a lot of times these big bills get landed in your lap, and there's stuff in there that you like, there's stuff in there you don't like, there's stuff you wish was in there, there's stuff you wish wasn't in there. And I mean, ultimately, pragmatically, you have to say, all right, the sum of this, does it need to get done? And if it does, I vote for it. And that's what happened on that minibus. Which, by the way, then goes to the Senate, then the Senate sends it back, and then it gets, I mean, it's not the end-all, that vote is not the end-all, be-all of what the ultimate spend dollar amount is or how it gets spent. Go ahead, Corey.
Next question from Kathy Bache of Why Missing. Her question is, what would you like to see